meeting to order at 6:01 on October 20th, 2021. We'll begin with a roll call. Please say here or present once I say your name. Advait. Adagarla. Ulrich. Brecht. Blythe. Carter. Claiborne. Cooper. Crabb. DeVore. Filippi. Finaldi. Goff. Hayes. Larson. Lent. Mahoney. Rios. McCready. Patel. Paulson. Risvik. Ruley. Seth. Simmons. Skaggs. Stout. Thornton. Wegmeister. Weathers. Zuber. Next, we'll go to the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Speaker Weathers.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll begin tonight with our program. Tonight it's an update from our ex officio, Trevor Poundstone.
Okay, hello. So today I have a presentation for you, mostly about the Ames Climate Action Plan, but also about a few other things as well. So we will get started. All right, so I just want to start off talking about what's happened so far, some big things this semester that the City Council has done. One thing we did just a couple weeks ago was approve an inclusivity crosswalk, which will be painted on Chamberlain and Welch. Currently going to be painted, but they're looking at, in the future with the Welch improvement projects, doing more permanent, they're called thermal tiles, so that could look really cool. There was the creation of the Residents Police Advisory Committee, which is focused on bringing the community opinions to the Chief of Police. There will be one student position on this committee. Typically for most candidates it's going to be a 3-year term, but for students obviously that's not going to work in most cases, so we'll be working on that. But there's going to be lots of education that goes into it, and then dealing with like complaints and things that require confidentiality. Next, obviously the big one is the Ames Climate Action Plan. So we've started that process. We're very early. I'll explain that. But that will be completed in September 2022. The Ames 2040 plan has also been created, is in the process of review and input, which is exciting. You can look on the website for that. It's pretty long, I will warn you. We are also planning the joint city council and student government meeting. That will be next Wednesday at 6 o'clock. So I sent out a form earlier today about different discussion topics that we'll want for that. So please fill that out so we can get that started and finalized. And then last, or just in general, there's a lot of things that we do. So if you have any questions, please reach out. Just some general things. I need everybody to try to come with me with different projects and ideas. There's a lot that the city can do and has to offer, and they want to. So anything that I can do, I'm happy to help. Our outreach to students is going to be really big, especially with the Climate Action Plan. The City Council really wants a lot of student opinion. They've emphasized that several times. And then just more representation at city events. So at the end of the slideshow, I have some coming up just talking about the different kinds of events that are going on here in the coming weeks. Some things I'm going to be doing. I've talked to Bryce. I'm going to be doing a monthly newsletter that's just going to be aimed at updating students on what is happening with the city in a more, readable manner to make it digestible. A resource guide with city information and resources on different funding opportunities, organizations, and other information. I'm I want to invite, there's a city council candidate, as one seat is going to be open. She's running unopposed, but still get people to know her and just introduce her and her ideas, and then interesting and relevant topics for the joint city council meeting. So yeah, so this is one of the big things that's coming up. This will be next week, like I said. It'll be an hour-long meeting. We'll have a pretty strict agenda. We'll probably go about 15 minutes per topic. That's how it's been done in the past, as far as I can tell. That agenda will hopefully be done by the beginning of the weekend. The meeting, it'll be a time to connect and discuss with them, so please bring any meaningful discussion that you have. And last year I saw the video and there wasn't a whole lot of discussion in general, and I'd like that to improve, hopefully. And then, like I said, I sent out that survey, so please complete it. It will be a structured meeting, and like I said, we'll follow that. Yeah, you can go to the next slide. Sorry. All right, so on to the Ames Climate Action Plan. So the city is responding to the climate emergency, and they did this by hiring an agency to help set us goals to reduce greenhouse emissions. So, this means a lot of different things. Obviously, we're working with a consulting agency. There's also a committee that is formed that's comprised of a lot of community members and students as well that are providing input, and then the steering committee, which is the city council, myself and the mayor, and a few others. The project has several stages. As you can see, we're currently in the second stage. Coming up on Monday, we have a town hall about this. They're talking about business as usual emissions, which generally means, or basically means, they did a test to see how our emissions are on a regular week, and then they will be showing us that information so we can set goals to lower that. And then from there, you can see each bubble in the timeline. Obviously, we're a little bit away, as you can see from the draft. We're in very early stages of this, but we are getting there. And like I said, that town hall is Monday, so it's really important to get people there because they want input for that. So developing a climate action plan allows us to align the land use and infrastructure planning processes with our greenhouse gas emission reduction targets and identify different goals and renewable energy options that we can put in. Like I talked about, the Climate Action Plan Supplemental Input Committee has a lot of students on it, and they have been working on this as well. At Iowa State, one of the biggest complaints that I've seen talks about the power source, and that implementing this will hopefully influence them to move something that is more sustainable, as it is Ames' goal to be carbon neutral by 2040, and I believe 2030 be 30%. So as you can see here, buildings and homes represent most of the emissions at 83%. 13 comes from community emissions to transportation, and then waste represents about 4. And then obviously Iowa State is a big part of that, more so in the buildings and homes. So the upcoming events for this, like I said, there's that town hall on Monday discussing the community and this community and energy emissions inventory, as well as the business as usual workshop. This will be at City Hall if you want to come in person, or it is also being done virtually. That'll still be interactive. You'll just have to call in. And then the objective in that meeting is to set up the time frame for the CAP, inform about the scenario results, a form on different target setting, and involve the community on the input. You can go to the next slide. Okay, yeah, so kind of talking about just in general some upcoming events in the city. Monday is the town hall. Tuesday we have the city council meeting, which I will be at. Be happy if anyone ever wanted to come. The seats are normally pretty empty. On Thursday, there's the Franklin Park ribbon cutting. I will also be there. On Friday, we have another ribbon cutting that I signed up to go to, so I'll be there too. And then on Saturday is no charge waste yard day. So if you have any waste and you need to get rid of it, this is a good time to do that. And then lastly, trick-or-treat night is on Sunday. So if you're going trick-or-treating, that's when to go. That's all I have. Are there any questions?
Where is Franklin Park? Like, where's the area that it's located?
That's a good question. Ooh.
While we're answering that, I'll just go over to Senator Rizvik, and you can ask the next question there.
First of all, I'm going to thank you for this presentation. I think it prepares us for next week because we are going to meet with City Council next week.
Right.
One question I had is, are you aware if City Council has been working with vulnerable communities in order to develop the climate action plan?
Yeah, so the input committee was, a lot of the applications received for that was one of the focuses in selecting, was people from marginalized communities or not as well represented communities, because that has been one of their big goals. They talk about it pretty often, especially Councilwoman Betcher. So yeah, I think that definitely was a focus in this, and will be continuing forward.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Senator Hayes?
Hey, so I know you're asking for like new projects and ideas. Are there any projects or ideas in the past that might be like good starting points for people to like start thinking about, or like good examples of like things that students have brought up in years prior?
Yes, so obviously last year not much could happen with COVID. So based on that, there's not a lot, I will say. I know, like I said, talking about with the upcoming election for city council, doing something with the candidate would be good in any way, because I know she wants to get student opinion on things. I've talked to her. She's really cool. As well as I know different things. I know they've done like community like gardens and things in the past, or like community service would be a big one, like setting up, like for the Greek example, the Greek community that does, like cleaning in the park. I think maybe something more large scale, because that there's not always a lot to do with that, but things like that, I think, if that helps.
Yeah, no, that does help. So it's just pretty like broad and like open-ended, like
Yeah.
stuff that like outreaches and like works with the community.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And which what did you say? Which candidate did you say was doing those projects, or wanted that outreach?
Oh gosh, let me pull that up too. I'm so sorry. And the park is by Szechuan House. So. Oh gosh.
Senator Date?
Yeah, thanks for coming out tonight. Could you tell us more about the police commission/committee, and how students might be selected to serve on it?
Yeah, so they're currently setting it up. Like I said, the whole idea behind it is to get more opinion on different policies and things that the police are implementing, as well as dealing with higher level complaints that the department's dealing with against, things that they could have done. That'll be a big part of it. So the requirements are about, it's like meeting once a month. There will be a application that'll be, they said, more rigorous than any of the other city committees. So I think that's something that'll be important to look at, because they want someone who's really serious and dedicated, and ideally someone who can commit, a year or two, because there'll be a lot of training for the position in general. As far as like super specifics, we just approved it like a week ago, so they haven't released those quite yet. But when that does all get finalized, we'll want to be looking for someone to put on that committee. So
Thank you. Also, I would like to pose a question to Chief of Staff Ludwig or Finance Director Zastro. Did you have something to say?
Just wanted to see where Franklin Park was.
I yield.
Senator Seth?
sorry.
So thanks for coming out and speaking about this again. The Ames Climate Action Plan is something I'm really, really excited about, because we've been pushing for that in Climate Reality for like 3 years at least, as well as ACAT. They're like a community organization that is also fighting. I'm sure you've probably heard of ACAP before. But what I was interested about was you were talking about essentially some figures on waste generation and Ames. And so one of the things that has been particularly contentious for a while now is waste recovery. And so I think I heard something about them doing some sort of assessment of essentially the efficiency or like the efficacy of the waste recovery plant. Can you speak a little bit about maybe any aspects of like the climate action plan that might be addressing the concept of waste, or if you know anything about that? That's really specific, but
Sure. What I will say is they're still looking into a lot of things. I think a lot of that information is going to come out on Monday. And I haven't quite been sent it yet. But once I do get into that information, I'd be happy to send it to you.
I would love to see it.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I'm pretty sure I heard something about them doing some sort of like an audit of waste recovery to see if there were changes that could be made or improvements made to it, but I'm not
I know
certain.
one thing we're looking at is, so like right now, waste collection is random basically in Ames. So we're going to look at organizing that to help with those issues, and then, reorganizing like waste management and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks so much again for coming out and speaking about this.
President Campbell.
To add on to your comments, Senator Seth, Director Smith is actually online watching tonight, and if anybody has questions, she just responded and had wanted to share that they're looking into updating some of the infrastructure at the Resource Recovery Center because of its age, and the town hall will definitely have data related to that, if that's helpful. No specific numbers are being recalled right now, but they will have data on that if that's helpful. Additional questions about this can be directed to her as she's involved in this process alongside Trevor. So just wanted to speak on behalf of her. Again, she's watching at home tonight.
Are there any further questions for the program tonight? All right, seeing none. Thanks, Trevor.
Point of order. I apologize for such a naggy point of order, but our bylaws do require that all senators refrain from laptop and cell phone use during programs in open forum. So I just remind everybody of that. I apologize for having to nag you all.
Is there any objection to adding Senator Rios to the roll? All right, Senator Rios has been added to the roll. Moving on to open forum. Open forum is an open discussion of issues relevant to students. Are there any students here or people here for open forum this evening? All right, moving on to adopting tonight's agenda. Are there any additions to tonight's agenda? Senator Advait.
I move to discharge 2021-2-031Y, putting the Director of Marketing in the bylaws from Rules Committee.
Is there a second? Is there a second? It's been moved in discharge the bill on the moving Director of Marketing from the bylaws, and I believe this does require a majority vote. So we can go into a discussion on discharging that from Rules Committee. Senator Advait.
All right, so to sort of explain what happened here, this bill was held in Rules Committee. The committee voted to hold it indefinitely with the language that it had, essentially killing the bill. Today, after speaking to all the involved stakeholders, including the current Director of Marketing and the individuals that brought up concerns in Rules Committee, myself included, I believe we now have amendments and language that is straightforward and sort of gets to the root of the problem and fixes it in a way that it works out for everyone. If you have any questions, please feel free to point those to me. I yield.
Vice Speaker Crabb.
So Senator Advait came and showed me some of the amendments. I really like them. It would be nice to see this in rules again with the changed amendments, but but it's also a really good bill, so it'd be good to see tonight. So,
Senator Mahoney.
And just to clarify, like kind of why it got held. There was a lot of concerns brought up with some of the specific language in the bill, and it pretty much ended up being decided it might be easier to hold it while we get some more time to either make some major heavy amendments within Rules Committee itself or to just write a new bill. That's kind of why it got held, and we were going to try again, but Evate came up with amendments, I think, sooner and better than it was maybe thought would happen.
Senator DeVore.
In, like it's already been said, in rules, we just saw some issues that we had with the bill, but I agree with Senator Crabb that bringing the bill back out of rules, I think it would be nice to see this bill in rules again, to be able to go over it with a fine-tooth comb a little bit better than we can do so here on the Senate floor. I yield.
Vice Speaker Crabb.
Yeah, and I am really happy about the amendments made. I think that we only did have 3 members in rules present. I would like to see next week we'll have more people in rules present. I would like to have this go over in rules again but yeah.
Speaker Weathers.
I would echo the comments of Senator DeVore and Vice Speaker Crabb. I think the amendments are good, of course, and the reason that Senator Mahoney gave for killing the bill in committee are accurate. However, I see no particular rush on this bill, unless I'm mistaken. So I don't think there's any problem with keeping it in committee and seeing it again next week and then bringing it out of committee then next Wednesday, unless there's a particular rush to get this bill out on the floor and vote on it right now. I would be opposed to putting this on Senate's agenda tonight.
Senator Debate.
Speaker Weathers, can we have the bill with amendments up on the screen for the body to see? It should be shared with you in your Google Drive.
Is everyone able to access the bill on their own devices?
Right. While that's being pulled up on screen, I guess we don't have to look at this right now, but I believe there is a good argument to be made from an efficiency standpoint. It's a very straightforward bill. It's really just consolidating language that already exists in the bylaws under one section, essentially, and then adding in the responsibilities that the Director of Marketing is already doing. For language that's really straightforward, and unless there's going to be really debate on this, Rules Committee has already seen the bill yesterday. We've made amendments to bylaw bills on the floor in the past, voted on them in Senate. I do think if you genuinely think the bill needs to go back to committee, please feel free to do that and vote that way. However, we do have limited time and limited resources in Rules Committee. We need to get back to bylaw review, other projects that have been put off for weeks and weeks, and while I completely understand whichever way you want to vote, I would recommend just reading through these amendments just to sort of explain what they do. 4.4.9.8.1 and 4.4.9.8.2. Point well taken. I yield.
Is there any further discussion on adding this to the agenda? Question has been called for and seconded. We're going to go ahead and do a placard vote. So voting yes would add this to the agenda tonight. Voting no, it would go back to Rules Committee. So we'll do a placard vote beginning with yeses. Noes. A With a vote of 7 to 18, the bill will go back to Rules Committee. Are there any additions to tonight's agenda? Senator Rulli.
I move to put Bill 2021-2-029F, funding SHOP, at the top of External Matters General Orders.
There's been a motion to move the SHOP bill at the top of general orders under external matters. Second. Is there any objection to adding that to the top of general orders? All right, it's been added to the top of general orders. Are there any more additions to tonight's agenda? Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda? Seeing no objections, tonight's agenda is adopted. Moving on to the approval of minutes from last week. Is there a motion to approve last week's minutes?
I move to add the vote total for Cardinal Eats to the minutes from last week.
It's been a motion to add the vote total for Cardinal Eats to last week's minutes. Is there a second? Seeing no objection, that will be added to last week's minutes. Is there a motion to approve last week's minutes as a whole? Is there a second? Seeing no objection, we'll approve last week's minutes. Moving on to committee reports, beginning with rules with Speaker Weathers.
Okay, so an exciting week in rules, obviously. We had 3 confirmation hearings that we saw first and foremost. We had 2 human sciences senators who you'll see tonight, as well as a Supreme Court justice. They were all very qualified, Rules Committee thought anyway, and they all passed favorably via unanimous consent. We asked them thorough questions, each tailored to the particular offices. The Senate questions were about representing constituencies, their involvement, their motivations, things like that. The questions geared towards the Supreme Court justice candidate were about non-bias, about having a level head and a judicial mindset. So a thorough round of questions that they all answered very well. The particular bills that we looked at, we have 030Y that was going to be on the agenda but was decided to be held in committee for a week. We also thought there was no particular rush on that, and unfortunately we were crammed for time in committee, and there's a lot of changes to be made there. So no rush, but we are continuing to work on that, continuing changes to make it better. And I won't beat a dead horse on 31Y, putting the Director of Marketing in the bylaws. We've already had a conversation on that. And then, we made some amendments to adding the Director of Student Services to the bylaws, 33Y, and that got sent favorably via unanimous consent. So all the bills we're seeing tonight should be good to go. I yield.
Finance Committee with Finance Director Zastro.
Howdy, y'all. Finance Committee had a pretty short meeting yesterday. We saw 2 bills, the Funding an American Sign Language Interpreter for Student Government sent favorably without all too much discussion. That's pretty straightforward. The second bill that we saw was the funding for Students Helping Our Peers SHOP. The SHOP's really great org. We sent that no bias because in our opinion, state that we cannot fund food that is not multicultural in nature. However, there is previous precedent of us funding food specifically for this org with these specific line items, and also for other food that was for like philanthropic purposes. So there's just kind of conflicting stuff on that. I would love to see that bill pass personally. Me and Director of Student Affordability Anderson, did I get the title right? Yeah. We've been working with them on that. The current account totals I do want to mention, you'll see special projects went down $1,000. That was because money was moved into the Green Initiatives account. So that's not anything too crazy. It'll drop on about $29,000 soon from there as well. But aside from that, I don't have too much of an update. We did get a clerk, which is super exciting. She's still getting the hang of it. So you'll notice on the minutes that were sent out, all of the timestamps are 6:05 p.m. The meeting was not instantaneous, I promise. So we'll be getting the quirks worked out, but really excited to have her as part of the committee. And you guys will be seeing the minutes hopefully Tuesday night so that you have a little bit to read them before Senate on Wednesdays in the future. Thank you.
We have a question, Speaker Weathers.
Hi, Finance Director Zastro. Would you be able to update the body on Senate discretionary?
Did I not
if you have
send
the
that
numbers
out?
up?
Yeah, Senate discretionary is in the email.
Oh, okay.
It's $25,892.35. I also say that the SHOP Finance Committee sent an amendment to change the account that the money's taken from for the SHOP bill to special projects.
Okay,
from
thank you.
Senate
That's what I was
discretionary.
asking. Yep.
Moving on to PR committee with Director Johnson.
Hi, everyone. A few quick updates. We had our first committee meeting with our at-large members last night. It went really well, and we were able to delegate quite a few projects. And then looking into the newsletter, as we're able to kind of expand that as we keep doing more issues. So delegating a lot of those tasks was great. And then for homecoming, thanks to everybody that came to the parade and painted Victory Lane. It all went really, really well. And then President Campbell, I think you might touch on it later, but she'll actually be presenting awards and things at the pep rally on Friday if anybody's there. So we'll see how we did with that. And then in terms of weekly tabling, Christian has set that up, and we'll have it tomorrow from, I believe, 11 to 2. So if you have any availability, please sign up for a slot. I know there's still a few open, and it will fulfill an outreach credit if you're still looking for those. For the clothing order, those are open for t-shirts and crew necks, and then we'll have polos open soon. We haven't set a definite deadline on those, but it'll probably be soon, so try to get your orders in as soon as possible. And then finally, we're planning a second multicultural town hall for Monday, November 15th. So any interest, we'd love to have everybody there. It went really, really well the last time. We had really positive feedback, so we'd love to have a big crowd for the next one as well.
Moving on to diversity committee with Director Flores.
Okay, sorry, my phone wouldn't open. Okay, hi. So I have some updates. So first of all, thank you to everyone who attended the microaggression workshop that happened just before this. I was able to attend for a little bit, and it was really lovely. So just to comment on that, we're hoping to expand that program to sororities and fraternities. So we'll keep going with that. We talked to the Center for LGBTQ plus students this week in our committee, which was a great conversation. We talked about gender neutral bathrooms, its expansion, and how signage is used, of which the consensus is signage. There is no particular way that it is used that we could improve upon. This week, we are going to meet to discuss diversity and inclusion training for athletes and sports. And we'll have quite a lot of other meetings coming up that are very exciting. And lastly, we're going to be seating the rest of our at-larges today. So I'm excited about that.
Moving on to student initiatives with Senator Vate.
Student Initiatives had its regular meeting this Sunday. We met and discussed our projects and also passed a funding bill with the new Student Initiative standing budget to fund donuts for the upcoming event on the 26th. That is next Tuesday. We also picked a name for the event. We're now calling it Woofs and Wellness because there's going to be a dog. Speaking of that, the event will be Tuesday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. We will be handing out free donuts, free pets, and free mental health resources. It's going to be on the East Marston lawn, which is just in line with the library. We expect to see a large amount of footfall and a high engagement rate. If you are in the area, feel free to swing by. Other than that, our subcommittees are also meeting up to further our other projects, most notably the Campus Accessibility Walk. And the safety walk is also being worked on the back end with ISUPD and other relevant stakeholders and the GIS system that we need to make that happen. If you have any questions, please let me know. And as always, if you have initiative ideas, we are more than happy to work with you on those.
Vice Speaker Crabbe.
For the event that's coming up next week, do you need help with any volunteers or no? We're all set on that. We're all set. Okay, cool. I was like, oh.
Civic engagement with Senator Paulson.
Hello, we had our candidate forum yesterday. All 7 candidates were able to attend. We had about 40 people there and 40 to 50 people on the live stream, so there was a pretty good turnout. That's basically it.
Comments from the Student Government Advisor with Sophia.
Okay, hello everyone. Happy Wednesday. I just wanted to give you a few updates on what I've been doing. Since October 4th, I have had 37 meetings with student government members. So if you have not signed up, I still have more room on my calendar for the rest of the month. So please do. I've been really enjoying it, getting to know everyone more than just Senator Blank or Director of anything. I find it to be great, so I really appreciate if you'd sign up for that. I have gone to the Finance Committee, the Student Initiatives Committee, the PR Committee, and the Sustainability Committee for their once a month I show up. On the agenda still is diversity and inclusion, which is tomorrow I'll be at that. And then next Tuesday I'll be at rules. And then I'll talk to Senator Paulson about when civic engagement is. Because then that's the only one I have left. As far as that, as an FYI, I'm out of the office tomorrow morning. I've had a bunch of people drop in randomly, which I appreciate. So if you ever just want to pop by and see if I'm available, please go ahead. My office is directly across from Panda, and someone will be able to help you. Don't be afraid to ring the bell if no one's there. It's fun. Please do. So that's all I have. If anyone needs anything, please let me know. Have a good Senate session.
Comments from the judicial branch with Andrew.
Hey everyone, I'm going to keep my part brief, but Chase wants to say a few things about the election timeline. So you're seeing a Supreme Court nomination today, so vote for that. That's always good, it's always cool. And then I'm going to hand it off to Chase here.
Hi everyone. You should have received an email from me announcing the election timeline for 2022. If you have any questions, let us know. If you're interested in running for an executive slate, please reach out to the Election Commission because you'll need our assistance in the coordination of submitting the Statement of Intent form. Thank you.
Speaker Weathers.
Yeah, I just had a quick question for Chief Justice Berwick. Have you had any contact with the new Attorney General? I don't know if you've heard any news about what they've been doing. I just know it's a new position, and there's a lot to be done in the position. So I'm just curious if you've heard anything as to their projects or what they've been doing.
I have not. I will reach out. I'll reach out. I'll reach out to him and see what he's up to. All right.
Okay, that's all I ask. I appreciate
I'll report
it.
back next week.
Thank you.
Vice Speaker Crab.
This is for Treasurer Krug. You said that we should reach out to you for exec slates, correct? For students that aren't in student government, how are you promoting that and making that accessible for everyone?
The Election Commission's PR team is going to be pushing that message out as well as the PR team here. We've coordinated because we know that since it's the week before classes start, we're going to need to really push that message. So yeah.
Moving on to comments from the executive branch with President Campbell.
Hey, good evening. Thanks everyone for your time tonight. I know this point in the semester can become fatiguing, so thanks for your continued efforts within student government. With that, the executive update is in your email inbox if you'd like to follow along or glance at that now or at a later point in time. I do want to echo Chief Berwick's comments that we do have a Supreme Court nomination up tonight, so ask questions, and we're excited for that. A couple updates on our end. Earlier this week, Vice President Decker and I met with Dr. Younger within Student Affairs. The primary topic on our agenda was discussing the climate of students on campus as it relates to how people are feeling, feelings of loneliness, depression, facing food insecurity. So we really had a conversation about that and the way the Student Affairs office is responding to campus. So within the executive update, I've included a link at the top. I would really encourage everyone in this room to take some time and look at it and familiarize yourself with the information, and then be able to point students in that direction if the time arises, or take a look at those resources for ourselves. Secondly, this was such an honor for Iowa State today. I want to share some of the guests that were on campus. Iowa State University was the host location for the U.S. Secretary of Agriculture and the Mexican Secretariat of Agriculture and Rural Development to meet on campus. This is the first in-person meeting they'd had since the pandemic, and they chose Iowa State for their location. You can read through my comments there, but an emphasis on sustainability in agriculture and improving production efficiencies while we still have a shrinking arable land base to grow food on across the globe. So incredibly interesting, really neat to have that happen at Iowa State. And if that's what you saw, the motorcade and the armored vehicles and the security detail, that's what was going on. So kind of cool. Very quickly, I had a wonderful conversation with Director of Affordability Anderson. I would direct any questions about her work with the cooking workshops for one coming up. So that's a combination of sustainability, combating food insecurity, and also improving affordability from efficient grocery list shopping and lots of nutrients in meals. So any questions? She's working on that right now. We had a great meeting with IRHA leadership and our senators here Senator Mahoney and Senator Ulrichs. With that, he's actually down. Jaden is at the World Food Prize this week, and we appreciate his efforts there. So you can read through some of the topics we discussed. They had some awesome initiatives they're working on. Want to do a shout out to the Civic Engagement Committee with Chair Sonia and also Bryce for his moderating last night at the candidate forum for the school board. Fantastic job. Thanks for sharing that information with the community, and thanks for your efforts there. There was some very positive feedback about it, so great work. Finally, a couple last things. Election officials they're still looking for them. If you have availability, it is a paid position and you get the chance to serve your community. So take a look in that if you'd like. There are links included. And 2 final updates. In terms of homecoming, happy homecoming week. I know it's a busy one, so make sure if you get the chance to have your button with food on campus, grab some nutrition or calories this week. But a couple updates. Senator Lent is out there right now with Yell Like Hell. That's going on, so I don't know the hand movements, but they're painted on campus tonight. And then final rounds are Friday, including the pep rally will take place at the Alumni Center from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. If anybody wants to join, I'll be there, and I'm happy to meet up or go together. And then finally, last thing, we'll talk more about this, but Sci Thanks are coming up. They run the entire month of November. It's a chance to say thank you to members of the Iowa State community that have had an impact on you and any respect. So would encourage you to take a look at that. And finally, take a look at the infographic if you get the chance from Student Health and Wellness regarding flu shot clinics on campus. So with that, can I answer any questions right now?
Speaker Weathers. Senator Hayes.
Awesome. Yeah, I just had a couple questions. So this one's, I guess, for Bryce. So it says the election officials are still wanted. I applied like 2 weeks ago. Am I supposed to like have heard back by now, or like do you know the timeline on that?
I know that there has been issues with it being an outside of did you use your Iowa State email?
Probably not.
Okay, well, if you used your Iowa State email, it's been going to spam because it's an outside of. So I would still check your spam just in case. But I can ask too. I can reach out and see why you have not heard back.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And then, sorry, I also had just 1 or 2 more questions. Director Anderson, could you elaborate on the project that you were working on?
Yeah, so is this on? Yep. So the project that I'm working on currently is something that Julia came up with during her campaign. It's cooking workshops for one, likely going to take place next semester. And we don't really have a lot of details currently, but mainly our focus will be to create like some sort of type of class that students are able to take for free. And the focus is being the food is affordable, sustainable, and nutritious. So we're hitting like 3 different types of angles there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I like that a lot. Julia?
We just want to comment. Julie's given a lot of credit where it's not due. This has been something that's been started by Extension, and so we began work last year and just wanted to share that some awesome groups have been working on this, and Julie's taken it home. So, yeah.
That's awesome. And sorry, one last question, just for anybody who was in the meeting with IRHA. I know at the multicultural town hall, there was like concerns with some of the students that were living in the residence halls about like symbols that were being drawn that weren't appreciated by some of the members at the multicultural town hall. I just wanted to know if that was brought up at all in that meeting, or yeah, that's my question from anybody that was there.
Yeah, I can touch on that. It wasn't explicitly talked about due to just some of the confidentiality stuff there. But there has been a lot of internal conversation, both within IRHA as well as senior leadership with all the executive team. I know Director Flores has already met with Pete Englund, the head of the Department of Residence, to discuss those sorts of issues. In fact, he actually reached out to Director Flores after the multicultural town hall. So those conversations are happening. It just was not the initial. Oh, yeah, I actually will yield some time to Director Flores if she'd like to talk on it.
Hi. Okay, so I met with the director of campus life along with campus DI and the chief of police to talk about this, and we went over their approach to it, prevention, and next steps. I thought that it was a very lively conversation. Basically, they kind of state that it's hard to do anything to legally like reprimand someone for these kinds of racial incidents because they are protected under the First Amendment in the state of Iowa. But so the chief of police said that he typically doesn't get involved, but Campus Life informed us that if there is a scenario that is too bad or if there is a continuing scenario, they could face expulsion from the dorms or other stuff that they can do to handle that. All staff is trained on how to situations, and they have kind of a first-hand experience in it. So as soon as an incident happens or occurs, they immediately form a group to handle it with the RAs, with staff, with diversity and inclusion to do that, which I thought was really great, and I didn't know about that beforehand. And some stuff we talked about is they're doing really everything they can with prevention. One of the comments that they said was, we do as much as we can and we always get better every year, but then have to start all over the next year as freshmen keep coming in. And they said they can't really control the people, but they have kind of the language of you're responsible for your own actions. There will be consequences pretty much everywhere that they can. And we thought of an idea to create a first-year course that would kind of help to maybe bring resources for victims and also just increase like accountability. So that's what we talked about.
Awesome. Thank you. That's all.
Speaker Weathers.
Okay, I apologize. This is getting a little lengthy, so I'll try to be brief. But I just had a question for President Campbell. I'm sure most of the people in this body tonight have seen the responses from the university and from various parties regarding the resolution. I guess I'm not looking to debate those responses, obviously, but my question is just how those were compiled, those particular responses, and whether or not we can expect any more responses regarding the resolution.
So the 3 that I had shared were the only 3 that we've received from the university, 2 within the athletics department, and then 1 external from the university. So I would imagine at this point, I don't foresee us having any additional responses. The information that I received was sent and shared in that PDF, with the exception of an email address from Matt Standish. So with that would be the situation on that currently. I had talked to Senator Hayes about it recently, but if anybody does have questions or would like to discuss it in more detail, I'm happy to do so.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Speaker Crabb.
As for President Campbell, and I think the best way to answer this would be yes or no, but did you end up responding back to those emails? Or what, like, did you, yeah.
I have not yet.
All right, seeing no further questions, we'll move on to external matters, general orders, beginning with 2021-2-029F, funding SHOP with Vice Speaker Crabb.
All right, we do have some representatives from SHOP, but Finance Director Zastro and Director of Affordability Anderson were a big part of this. They talked to SHOP, and these are the numbers they gave me. I did end up wanting to increase it by 2,000. Oh, wait, we're in funding SHOP, okay. So we did want to increase it by another $2,000, but I will let you talk. Thank you.
You guys just want to give a rundown a little bit about the funding and maybe what SHOP does, and then we'll have people from the floor ask questions.
Yeah, of course. Oh, this is pretty loud. Cool. I'm Belinda. I'm currently the president of SHOP. I have Sierra, our treasurer, here with us, so hopefully we'll be able to answer any questions that you have. Thank you for having us. SHOP is the food pantry on campus, as it's been mentioned a couple of times. Recently, last year, we moved from food science over to Beyer Hall. If you haven't been there yet, I encourage you to go check it out. But basically, we were able to expand from having just non-perishable items to now both non-perishable and perishable with refrigeration and as well as freezer space. So we really allowed our selection items to increase. We've included new partnerships with student wellness throughout the last year and a half, as well as the Food Bank of Iowa. So we've been able to get also the more quantity of food for a reduction of price at times. We also do supplemental purchasing to get things like toiletries, which include personal care items, things like soap, laundry detergent, household items like that are kind of staples, but you might not think about as being constantly supplied in a food pantry. So that's a little bit about the items that we have. We welcome any questions that you might have.
Senator Rulli?
I'm going to first move to add the Finance Committee amendment.
It's been a motion to add the Finance Committee amendment and seconded. Any objection? Go into a discussion period on the amendment. Question has been called for and seconded. Any objection to voting now? All right, we'll go ahead and vote on the amendments. Unanimous consent has been called for. Is there any objection to adding those amendments unanimously? All right, amendment's been added. Back on the main motion.
Yeah, and I can give some insight to the rest of the Senate as to why this was sent no bias. In Finance Committee, we had a really good discussion about funding food and disposable items. Food and disposable items are listed in our priorities and criteria as funding eligible. Mason referenced a little bit about the precedent that we set. 2 years ago, we had a similar request come from another organization on campus called Block and Bridle. They were purchasing meal kits to distribute, and it was considered food items. Finance initially sent that bill unfavorably to Senate, and it still ended up passing. So that's basically setting precedent for student government to at least hear requests regarding food for distribution. This is why we sent it no bias, as we wanted the Senate to have a good discussion about this as well. It technically doesn't follow PNC, but it is a unique case. Regarding my stance on the bill, I am fully in support of it. Hunger on campus is an important and very real issue. According to the National College Health Assessment conducted by ISU in spring 2019, 24% of all students aged 18 to 30 at ISU reported that they were food insecure, and that's close to 1 in 4 students. As the treasurer for student government last year, one of the items that I added to ISU's priority was providing funding for food banks. I believe that the intention is for SHOP to be added into the asset process, but the earliest this can occur is the start of next year. This bill would be providing the club with funding for this year, as it's greatly needed for the operation of the organization. College students have enough to worry about as it is, and alleviating the thought of where the next meal is coming from will greatly reduce stress and anxiety. Please consider your constituents, peers, and members of your community when voting. You have the chance to show that you're an ally and leader for your peers with a yes vote on this bill, and the impact of this vote can literally save lives. I yield.
Speaker Weathers.
All right. Obviously not calling into questions the nobility and the intention of the bill. I think it'll have a very positive effect if we do pass it. I guess my question is for Finance Director Zastro, or anyone on Finance Committee if they're so inclined to answer. But what are the consequences, if any, of not following priorities and criteria when passing a bill like this?
I think what we would want to say is if there was another organization that asked for $12,000 for food that had shown, the adequate ability to distribute it to spend the money that we allocate to them, that we would have some level of obligation to give that money to them as well. I do not believe that there is a single other group on campus that would have that ask that we would fulfill because they would be able to do so. Similar to the precedent that we set during annuals this year, where a new publication from an existing club would be funded at $2,000. If any organization had not previously had a publication and they started a new one, we would be obligated to give them $2,000. Yeah. So there's no immediate penalty.
Are there any other routes of funding to give this money to SHOP that don't violate our priorities and criteria?
Asset in the future, but they wouldn't be eligible to even apply to be an asset group until June of next year, which is why we would like to start the funding. I have no idea how they figure out the exact cost. Maybe this is something that Senator Rulli could answer. I don't know how they figure out the cost of funding new programs in asset the first time, but I would guess with a very, very large amount of uncertainty that this is somewhere in the ballpark of what they would get through asset if we funded them through that process, and that's not subject to PNC.
Okay, thank you. Senator Rulli, then, since you have experience with asset working in the past, do you think a program like this or an organization like SHOP would be able to get funding through asset?
I can't speak on whether they would be accepted, as I'm not the one who decides that. We do allow, there is an application process through asset regarding funding for food banks. There are programs currently in asset that also do provide food banks, so I see no reason as to why SHOP would be excluded from asset. I see them as could be a great addition, but I can't say exactly for sure on all the policies.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Senator Mahoney. Senator Blythe.
All right. I guess my main question here is to anyone. I guess I'll use my time to anyone who actually could speak on behalf of SHOP here with the bill. But how long would this 12,000 get for SHOP? I guess is so. I'll yield my time to whoever.
Do you want to answer that one too? Do you want to elaborate just a little bit? Do you?
Please
mean,
do.
No. Do you want to?
Sorry, my bad. That's my apologies on that. So you have you requested 12,000 from the student government here. I'm just wondering how is this how what's the timeline that you expect this sort of money to last you for?
Good question. Do you want to answer?
So I would say, so I'm the one who does all the purchasing, and we do spend a few $1,000s a week or biweekly on food or toiletries. So, I mean, we could be spending more because our traffic flow is so high. So, I mean, I would say, our numbers have doubled over the summer, and then in September have doubled since the summer. So, I mean, we would probably see it last for maybe 3 months, maybe.
That's all I want to ask. I yield my time.
Senator DeVore.
Yeah, I have a question for the representatives. Now that you guys are dealing with perishable food items, do you have, it doesn't sound like it, sounds like you have pretty good demand, but do you have any issues with those items going to waste, or are they getting utilized in a timely manner?
I would say the day that we get the delivery, almost all the perishables are gone from the fridge and freezer, so we don't really have any issues with spoilage or anything like that.
Awesome, thank you.
Senator Seth.
Hi, so this would be to either of the representatives from SHOP. I know one of you is Belinda. I'm sorry, Sierra. Yep. Yeah, Belinda and Sierra. Okay. I was just curious, looking at the line item. I think most of the things on the line item are straightforward, but I'm curious as to the category that says food, and there's $8,000 listed on that. Could you just elaborate on essentially kind of what categories of food would you purchase if you were to receive this funding? Would it be a lot of perishable items or non-perishables, specific like rice, something? Just elaborate, if you will.
So we're actually hoping to get more multicultural foods in because that has been a request from our users. So that's something we're hoping to see more of, as well as perishable items. Of course, it's always good to have shelf stable, just because that lasts longer. It can sit there for a lot longer. But that's a little bit easier for us to get in through the food bank. So we kind of want to prioritize the perishables and multicultural foods.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for clarifying that. I was just curious. I yield.
Speaker Weathers.
I just moved to add Senator Patel to the roll.
Any objection? Right, Senator Patel has been added to the roll. Any more discussion? Senator Debate.
Finance Director's Astro, what's up?
Oh, I just want to say on that last point, the reason that we have it just as broad as food, when COA goes through to audit, we could say we're giving 500 for rice and 500 for canned beans and parse it out like that. This just gives them a little bit more flexibility while still being narrow enough that COA is able to accurately perform their audit.
Sweet. I understand there's been some concerns brought up about this bill being in line with PNC, rather not being in line with PNC, but I'd like to talk about something else for a second. I believe I heard someone on the floor say earlier that the bill amount was bumped up by $2,000 extra. If either Finance Director Zastro could elaborate, do you mean the number you were approached with was $10,000 and you bumped that up to 12 just to be extra safe?
We were not approached by SHOP for this. This is something, when we went down to Wake Up for the Big 12 conference, we saw that other student governments were contributing to their schools' food pantries in a much more substantial way than we were. And I think it kind of showed a lot of us, and immediately we reached out to Director of Affordability Anderson, realizing that this is a serious service to students. And if we can be funding this, this is something that can have a tangible impact on students' lives in a way that spending our money on a lot of other things won't. So we came to them, had a meeting with them, and they basically said the more the better. I was initially thinking that this would be coming from the Senate discretionary account, which is why I proposed the number 10,000 to Eliana, to Vice Speaker Crabb, when she was writing the bill, because that was the amount that would be going into the Senate discretionary account over the winter break. I'm obligated to add 10,000. So effectively, just for rhetorical purposes, it's pretty easy to think, okay, the 25,000 that we have right now, it's effectively not being added. Vice Speaker Crabb just wanted to add a little bit more. Any number that we give is ultimately going to be arbitrary.
And just sort of coming off of that, then, how were the individual line item numbers arrived at?
After talking with SHOP, most of the purchasing that they did was food, and then giving them a little bit for multicultural food specifically would let them spend a little bit more money on stuff that serves a specific segment of the population. And then they also said that they per unit, excuse me. So that's something, just some percentage of it, they like it. If you guys have any comment on if you guys wanted to change the breakdown, you could talk about that. This is just something that we kind of came up with.
Sweet. Thank you for that, Finance Director Zastro. I do appreciate you going into that. Getting back to the point on PNC, this is a really good bill. However, if we are, something to keep in mind as we probably will vote to pass it, is this will bring up thorny questions. And I said this the last time we bypassed PNC. This always brings up thorny questions of who gets exceptions to our rules, why they get exceptions to those rules, and what standards, what codified standards we're holding organizations to when we do give them exceptions to those standards. Like I said, these are completely uncodified. I would prefer that we have an exception written into PNC specifically for charitable organizations or what have you, so that way we have a clear standard for all organizations to meet and we're not handling it sort of arbitrarily on a case-by-case basis. That's just sort of something to keep in mind as we go ahead in the coming, even on this vote and in the coming weeks, and when we see PNC later in this term. I yield.
Senator Rizzo.
Hi, I just have two quick questions. For the multicultural food, I guess how are you guys selecting those? Do you have like a list of requests, or I guess how is that being decided?
Yeah, so usually we'll have requests from users, and then the volunteers will just write them down and then give them to me. So then when I make the purchases, I just get those items. And then also we'll just purchase like staple items like rice and beans and things like that.
And then my second question is, how is the funding, so how is this going to be divided between the different locations for SHOP?
Yeah, so we actually only have one location now for SHOP, so we're just located at Beyer Hall. We no longer have the Freddie Court satellite location, so.
Okay, thank you. I yield.
Senator Hayes.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the standards for PNC, this is up to Senate discretionary for a reason. I think that we're having the ability to vote now and presumably vote yes on an organization that it seems like we trust a lot. And special projects. I'm sorry, but I mean when I say Senate discretion, I mean that we have the decision to vote in that way because we're the ones that get to decide whether or not we fund them right now or not. I think that for an organization that we trust and we think are doing and that we think is doing good work, I think that it's obviously a good choice to fund them. And if there were an organization that were to come to us with a similar request that we didn't trust, it would also be our obligation to perhaps not treat them the same way. So I think that this is probably a good decision now while we have the opportunity to do benefit for our community to do that good. That's all I had to say.
Speaker Weathers.
I think both Senator Debate and Senator Hayes bring up good points. I am usually disinclined to violate rules for most any reason, but I think this will have a very good benefit, as Senator Hayes has said. That said, I guess I have a question for the representatives from the organization here tonight. How much usage does the service you provide see? I guess how many students come in, what percentage of the campus comes in and uses this? Because if we were to break with our rules, I would want to make sure that we're actually having as much of a benefit as possible.
Yeah, so this summer we saw about 100 to 200 people a month, and then just in the month of September we saw over 300. Also, last semester we gave out about 2,000 pounds worth of food, and in the month of September alone we gave over 5,000 out. And that part of that is because we've had increased exposure, so people are actually learning about the resource, and then I think our expansion of items has made it a more valuable resource to students on campus as well.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Right. Finance Director Zastro.
I would just like to say, before we go into a vote, because it seems like that's where we're going. Thank you. In Supreme Court opinions sometimes, where if there is a specific rule that's founded upon general principles, but the application of the specific rule violates those general principles, the rule should not be followed. So I would say, when we were writing a rule for food in PNCs, we're thinking, sorry Zuber, but we don't want the ADD sports buying 40 pizzas for their weekly meeting. That's not something we're going to fund. This is obviously a very different circumstance. The foremost fundamental rule of student government funding is we fund things that help students. Our mission, our challenge is to make the student experience better, fuller, more complete, and that's something that this absolutely doesn't fill. So I would really encourage you guys to vote yes on this. This is a seriously impactful bill, and just because it doesn't follow the bill, there's a lot of PNC. I yield.
Question has been called for and seconded. Any objection to voting now? We'll go into closing comments with Vice Speaker Crabb.
Thank you all for the conversation. Thank you, Shop, so much for coming. It was really wonderful learning a little bit more about your organization and what you're doing for students on campus. I urge you all to vote yes. But yeah, thank you. I yield.
All right, since this is a funding bill, we will be going into a roll call vote. Please vote yes, no, or abstain once I say your name. Ed Vate. Yes. Adagarla. Yes. Brecht. Yes. Blythe. Yes. Carter. Yes. Claiborne. Yes. Cooper. Yes. Crabb. Yes. DeVore. Yes. Finaldi. Yes. Goff. Yes. Hayes. Yes. Larson. Yes. Mahoney. Yes. Patel. Did she just leave? Okay. Paulson. Yes. Risvik. Yes. Ruley. Yes. Seth. Yes. Simmons. Yes. Stout. Yes. Thornton. Yes. Wagmeister. Yes. Weathers. Yes. Zuber. Yes. Rios. Of a vote of 25 to 0 to 1, the bill passes.
Thank you.
Moving on to 2021-2-028F, funding ASL interpreter with Senator Claiborne.
Hello. So as I said last week, this is a bill to fund American Sign Language interpreters for the presidential and vice presidential debates in the next coming election. questions, please ask.
Is there any discussion? Senator Rulli. Vice Speaker Crabb.
I want to say thank you to the Election Commission for bringing this up again. This was my project last year, so it's really cool to see that we're pushing this through Senate this year. I urge you all to vote yes. This is a wonderful opportunity to become more accessible to students and especially people that might want to watch that aren't at Iowa State. So please vote yes.
Senator Rulli.
I move to adopt the Finance Committee amendments.
Been a motion to adopt the Finance Committee amendments. Is there any objection? We'll go into a discussion period on those amendments. Question has been called for and seconded. Any objection to voting now? Go into a voting period. Unanimous consent has been called for. Any objection to adding those amendments unanimously? All right, the amendment's been added. Back on the main motion. Question has been called for and seconded. Any objection to voting now? Going to closing comments with Senator Claiborne.
Coming from someone who has a family member that is deaf, I encourage all of you to vote yes. People who are hard of hearing or deaf want to be involved with in activities like this on campus and just obviously worldwide. And funding these 2 interpreters would allow these people to be involved with what is happening on campus and in their communities. So as I said, I do hope all of you vote yes.
Since this is a funding bill, we will be going into a roll call vote. Please vote yes nor abstain. Advait. Adagarla. Brecht. Blythe. Carter. Claiborne. Cooper. Crabb. DeVore. Finaldi. Goff. Hayes. Larson. Lent. Mahoney. Risvik. Rulli. Seth. Simmons. Stout. Thornton. Wagmeister. Weathers. Zuber. Of a vote of 26 to 0 to 0, the bill passes. Moving on to Internal Matters Special Orders 2021-2-022 SC, confirming a Supreme Court nomination with Speaker Weathers.
All right, Brady, if you'd like to approach the lectern up at the front of the room. Brady went through the Rules Committee and answered extensive questions there. By far took the most time. I think we spent maybe 10, 15 minutes interviewing him, basically holding him up to the highest standard that we could. So I encourage all of you to ask questions if you think we didn't do our job. Go ahead, Brady.
Thank you for having me this evening. Thank you to President Campbell for taking my request to join the Supreme Court and for her nomination. I would like to hear any questions people have. I know I talked to the committee about my motivations and about criteria for being a court justice. If any of you have questions on those things specifically, please address those first.
Senator Mahoney.
Yeah, so obviously I was in rules and taking notes, so I heard kind of what you had to say. Can you go over why you would like to join student government and some of your qualifications?
Of course. I'm going to go over my reasons for wanting to be part of government first. So my primary reason for wanting to join the student government in the judicial branch is I, one, enjoy government very much. And specifically, I'm in the political science program, and I've been studying the judiciary for about a year and a half now. My time at Iowa State is running out. I am a senior. I am going to be done in the spring. There may be an exception to that with a summer course, but regardless, my time frame is becoming short, and during my time here at Iowa State, I haven't made a big enough impact on the community. I feel that as someone who is confident in speaking for others and one who enjoys representing the people around me, that I have an obligation to do so if I can. For requirements for the court,
that I feel that I have. The leadership capabilities that I've cultivated over my high school and college experience include time with the Lions International organization. During my time with them, I promoted community health in my local area through the Lions Club. We often did fundraisers for community projects and did community service. I worked with the Boy Scouts of America as a scout, and later, after attaining Eagle, I worked with the Scouts, educating them for further merits up until 2 years ago. When I started college, I was in DMAC, and so I'm a transfer student here at Iowa State, and I've been here for 2 years. During my time in at DMAC, I apologize, I continued doing my aid with the Scouts, trying to instill in them leadership capabilities and enabling them to take on responsibilities of their own. During my time at Iowa State, I am a double major, and so I decided that I wanted to primarily focus on my studies. And now that my studies are coming more to a close, I feel that I'm in a better position to more efficiently use my time, and therefore I now have time to work in student government. Does anyone have any other questions? I would really enjoy them.
Thank you for that. I have just one more question I'd like to ask. I know during your rules confirmation hearing, you talked a lot about some of your additional goals on being on the court, mostly outreach. Could you speak to that?
Yes, of course. I don't know why I didn't address that, actually. So something that I feel is extremely important for anyone in student government, whether they're representing a committee, whether they're representing an office, is being able to outreach to the community, because ultimately that's who we are serving. I feel that the court specifically is under-recognized by the community, and I feel that if we were to make everyone more aware of what we do, then we would have more involvement in the community. The same goes for the other parts of government. I feel that outreach is essential to performing our function, and so for especially our hot ticket items, we should really be pushing ourselves to go out and talk to all of our constituents. I think that doing this via survey system would be very effective. Any of the psychology students would probably agree with that. And as far as I know, this is not happening on a wide scale for the student government. So personally, I would like to be able to provide some time outside of judicial duties to help institute those capabilities for other committees and generally for the student government. Yeah.
Senator Debate.
As you probably know, and we talked about in Rules Committee yesterday, a position on the court is rather permanent, and you will be holding that position until the end of your term here at Iowa State. It is also one of the most important roles we have because the court is the supreme arbiter in a lot of cases that might end up at your doorstep. That being said, I'd just like to repeat sort of the question I asked at Rules yesterday. What is your view on the role and functions of the court? Could you perhaps go into your interest in the jurisprudential scene and perhaps your knowledge in that regard? And lastly, in knowing student government members, if you were to end up with a case that might involve a conflict of interest, would you be willing to recuse yourself?
Okay. So I feel that the role of the courts is going to be saying what the law is and being able to provide relief for anyone who has been injured in any way in the community that we as student government can address. Regarding the role specifically as a justice, I would completely agree with abstaining from anything that would seemingly be controversial. That's pretty much a given. I feel that in the position that I am in, having been a transfer student and having maintained focus on studies and not having been involved in many of the clubs, I'm in a unique position to be generally neutral towards anyone on campus that would come forward to the court for relief. Could you please say again everything? I know I missed something.
The second question was, could you speak to your experience and, I guess rather, knowledge and interest in the jurisprudential scene, and just expand on that a little? Just stuff you might have studied through your classes and whatnot.
Yes, of course. So my focus here has been split between political science and psychology. I'm trying to apply psychology to law, and it's essential to do that in the legislation as well as in the judiciary. I feel that it's under-applied in the judiciary, and so I focused specifically my studies over the last year and a half on the judiciary itself. I've been studying very closely with Dr. Dirk Diem and Professor Wagner, studying these subjects, and hopefully I will be attending law school in the future to become an attorney and perhaps work in the federal judiciary in the future. With these goals in mind, I feel that, one, it's essential that I am able to attain the experience from the level that we are at today in the student body government. And I feel that being able to serve on this level will help me not only become better at representing this community, but communities at large. And through the experiences of someone that is not or has not been in the student government here, I feel that any shortcomings that I may have will be able to enlighten anyone else that is looking to the student government as a possible, what's the word I want to use? A possible use of their time while they're at Iowa State, those who would aim to be part of the student government.
Nominee Schloyer, I do appreciate the depths of your responses. I thank you for, again, taking the time to go through everything in detail. I yield.
Senator Seth.
Hi. I really appreciate, again, to echo what Advait has said, the depth to which you've been answering these questions. I think that's really appreciated. I like the specificity. I also think it's really interesting that you're studying psychology and law. It's a very interesting combination of things. But what I wanted to ask you about was your discussion of outreach for the Supreme Court and the judiciary and just student government as a whole. And you mentioned this concept of outreach via survey. Can you explain a little bit more about what exactly that would look like?
Yes, of course. So when everyone envisions a survey, they often think of a simple piece of paper with several questions. And of course, many people are going to simply, when they see that in their email box, overlook that and not even think about it. I can tell you that there are many, many, many students that have looked over the health surveys that have recently been sent out. Being able to get responses for those surveys is an essential part of the survey in general. And methods to distributing those surveys during the different activities that the student government runs would be essential to getting those results. So, for example, let's say with the ladies that spoke earlier that were working with the food pantry, if they wanted to go in depth on their surveying, they could require that a simple short survey be filled out whenever someone comes to the pantry to receive food. And with that small requirement, it's no hindrance to those people to supply that information, but it's extremely helpful to that organization for performing their actions in a better way, in more efficient ways. And so I would like to apply that kind of incentivize idea to other government activities. So when we set up for, when clubs have activities where they're providing food, again, is a great example because everyone likes food. When everyone comes to that activity, they're required to do something short that won't impede them in any way. But yet again, that information is essential to us. And when we use that survey information, because they're incentivized to fill out, they're going to be more honest. And with that information and the abundance of information compared to normal surveying where it's optional, that information then can be used to our advantage to change our programs and change any statutes that need to be changed to reflect those survey results.
Okay, yeah, thank you. That was an excellent response to my question. I think this is a really interesting methodology in terms of outreach, and so I really appreciate that answer and those thoughts. So I have no further questions, and so I will yield.
Question has been called for and seconded. Any objection to voting now? We'll go ahead and go to closing comments. No closing comments. Go ahead and go into a voting period for the nominee. Unanimous consent has been called for. Is there any objection to confirming the nominee for Supreme Court unanimously? Okay, seeing none, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to 2021-2-025 SD, confirming a nomination for Human Sciences Senator with Speaker Weathers.
Yeah, if both of you would like to approach the lectern, it'll be a similar process, but yeah, I guess I will just ask you both to speak on what you spoke on rules, your motivations and your experience and what you'd like to do in student government as a senator. For the body's information, they're both very qualified. They both have a good mindset going into it. All of you can make that judgment for yourselves, of course, but rules sent them both favorably. So whichever one of you would like to go first.
Sure. Good evening, guys. My name is Ryan Strickland. I am a student in the College of Human Sciences. I'm a kinesiology student. My main motivation for joining the Senate is kind of two-pronged. Number one, I'm fairly new to Iowa State. I was a transfer student coming in. So last fall was my first semester here at Iowa State, and as all of you know, we are in the middle of a pandemic. So not a whole lot of time to find out what was going on at Iowa State. I spent most of that time in my apartment doing classes, as I'm sure a lot of you can relate to. So by joining student government, I figured that would be a great way to know kind of what goes on at Iowa State, what goes on in the background, all the hard work that you guys do, as well as just kind of get the most out of Iowa State that I could. And I feel like being a senator is a great way to do that. Additionally, I mentioned I was a transfer student from DMACC, and I feel that that gives me somewhat of a unique mindset as to different things that go on at Iowa State. A lot of students will come here and spend all of their time at Iowa State, be fully invested in the kind of culture here, and not have a different viewpoint or a different thinking process. And I think coming from a community college where things are done quite a bit differently, I'm not used to sitting in a lecture hall full of like 400 people, gives me just a different way of viewing problems and things like that. So in terms of experience, I was involved in student government in high school. I know that's not quite to the same scale as we have here at the university, but having some background, I feel, makes me at least a little bit qualified. If you guys have any questions, I would love to take them.
You can have the other nominee come up to the podium if that's all right. We can just do questions overall. So if you want to give us a little bit about your qualifications and why you want to become a human sciences senator.
Hi, my name is Stacy Sewe, and I've been nominated by the College of Human Sciences as one of the senators. I'm a kinesiology and health major as well. And my motivation to joining the student government was leadership. You know, I'm an introvert, so I wanted to learn about the American, government, especially in college, because I'm an international student. Some of my qualifications are that I went to North Iowa Area Community College in Mason City before I transferred to Iowa State this semester. So I was part of the International Students Club, and I was the treasurer. I'm also part of iLead, which is a program here at Iowa State for international students seeking to learn about leadership. So I just chose to apply. I got accepted, thankfully. And I plan on working, especially with the College of Human Sciences. I plan on working with the research part of it, because most of us require research to attend graduate school. So that's going to be one of my things that I look into. And if anyone has any more questions, you can go for it.
Are there any questions for either of the nominees? Vice Speaker Crabb.
Thank you both so much for coming. Both of you spoke in rules about some projects or initiatives that you're interested in working on. I know that Stacy, you just spoke about the research aspect. You can both go into some type of initiatives or go further into something you've already spoken about, please. Thank you.
So I personally want to go to med school after Iowa State, and I know other people in the College of Human Sciences would want to go to maybe their master's program, or if they're in kinesiology, they want to be a PT or a PA. And all these courses require you to have a certain amount of research. But since so many of us now, especially with COVID happening last year, so many of us now all want to get research positions, and there's limited of them. So I would work with professors at Iowa State to increase opportunities so that everyone could get a chance at it. I think that's that's my main thing that I would do.
As I mentioned, I came from DMAC, and I think as a transfer student, you're faced with a unique situation of you're coming to a campus you don't really know a whole lot about, and you don't really know a whole lot of people. And so I think my focus as a senator would be on outreach almost to transfer schools or students coming in as transfer students, and kind of finding a way, specifically in the College of Human Sciences, to make them feel at home. I know when I came here at Iowa State, the online orientation was kind of a headache. Couldn't really find my way through it all that easily. So having different events that are really just based on getting to know the campus and all the ins and outs. I mean, for example, this year was my first time riding the Sci Ride, and I had been on campus for a whole year, So just easy, simple ways to get transfer students more experience, I think, would be my main focus.
Senator Mahoney.
One of your duties as senators will be joining some sort of committee, whether that be a legislation or a senatorial one, executive one, or just a university one. Have either of you thought about potential committees you would be interested in joining?
For me, with limited experience here at the university level of student government, my plan of action was to kind of send some feelers out and talk to people on the different committees and see where I think I could plug in most effectively. So with that being said, I'm sure this is not the only time you guys will hear from me. I'll probably go out and reach out. So.
Yeah, I also plan on joining some committees. I've looked into the civic engagement one, and I'll look into the rest and pick one I'm comfortable with.
Thank you.
Is there any question has been called for and seconded? Any objection to voting now? We'll go into no closing comments. We'll go into a voting period for the two nominees. Unanimous consent has been called for. Is there any objection to confirming both the nominees for Senate unanimously? All right, congratulations. All right, and also let's have you stay up there, and we have our Chief Justice here. He can swear you in right now.
Sure, you want to do the same time? Okay.
Please repeat after me. I solemnly swear or affirm.
I solemnly swear or affirm.
To execute the duties of my position.
To execute the duties of my position.
As prescribed in the Constitution.
As prescribed in the Constitution.
And laws of the government.
And laws of the government.
For the benefit of all students.
For the benefit of all students.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Speaker Weathers.
I would like to move to add both of the recently confirmed senators to the roll.
Seeing no objection, they've been added to the roll. All right, moving on to 2021-2-023 SC, seating members to the Diversity and Inclusion Committee with Senator Rios.
Well, a little bit about how Director Flores and the committee decided. Should we let them answer first? And then I'll give a background. Yeah, let's do that. So if you guys could please give a little bit about your background, your intentions, your qualifications, that would be great. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Paulina Hernandez. I go by she, her, hers pronouns, and the group I'm representing at large is TRIO. And my committee goal is to increase representation for first-generation students who struggle with feeling included.
Hello everyone, my name is Dhruv and pronouns are he, him, and I'm the president of Hindu Yuva student organization at ISU, which aims to promote, protect and preserve the Hindu culture in campus. And I'm here to represent minority religious community at large. I'm a graduate student in mechanical engineering here at ISU, and my committee goal to focus on is to improve the resources for underrepresented minority religious community. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Paco Peña, and I go by pronouns he, him. I'm a sophomore studying actuarial science, and I am here to represent the undocumented community. One of the committee goal that really spoke to me was representing, just increasing representation for undocumented students. And is it okay if I speak to my qualifications right now, right? Yeah. If I speak to the qualifications right now? Yes. Oh yeah, okay. Last semester I developed an UndocuAlly training, and I presented it to about 100 people. That was really fun. As a part of a group, ISU Dreamers, I wanted to do that. I wanted to do that a little bit more as a part of student government. Yeah.
Okay, we do have one more member, Valentina Borges. She couldn't be here today, so Alejandra's Director Flores is going to read her application.
Okay, so I am reading the statement for Valentina Borges. So her name is Valentina. She goes by she, them pronouns. She's majoring in aerospace engineering and representing the women in STEM at large. She would like to work on projects to help bridge the gaps of accessibility and help empower women of color in the male-dominated fields such as STEM.
Senator Debate.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. And thank you for going over sort of your primary interests in the D&I space. I suppose I just wanted to ask all of you, and you don't have to have a definitive answer right now, but how you might consider reaching out to sort of the constituents you talked about the most, and what, if any, initiatives you might have in those areas to further your goals.
So the UndocuAlly training that I had developed last semester, it goes to the student body and to staff. And so I wanted to just make sure that, both those people, the student body and staff are educated on who undocumented students are. The more that people know about who they are, the more people are more comfortable on coming out of the shadows. The undocumented community is one that is particularly in the shadows. And so the more people know about them, the more they'll feel comfortable coming out.
As an MVP scholar, I feel like there's a lot of resources that I feel like I could reach out to, especially with a lot of students who are first generation. I feel like we struggle, and myself included, I feel like we struggle with feeling included and represented in a way. So I feel like just getting to know all the committees and all the services that you guys can do for people who struggle with those same things as I do.
Hello everyone. So I'm planning to reach out to the other minority religious community on the campus, and the problem. So I myself, being the president of a religious community over here in campus Hindu Yuva, we conduct various events throughout the year, and during which we celebrate various festivals, and we regularly perform service activities in the Eames community. And while doing such activities, we several times faces financial constraints, and that's a big issue that we frequently face during all our events. So that is and I am in contact with other organizations in the campus of similar nature who also faces such issues. So that is a big issue that I would like to focus on, and I would like to get some solution for it.
Sweet. Thank you so much. All of that sounds really cool. I yield.
Senator DeVore.
I would like to yield my time to President Campbell.
Hey, good evening. I just want to say, number one, thank you for being here and thanks for your interest in student government. I'm very impressed by your experiences and the ideas you're bringing tonight. Specifically, I want to speak on behalf of Paco and not speak on behalf of the other two. I've loved what I've heard, but from Director Flores, she introduced me to Paco originally, and I just want to speak to Senate on what an incredible teacher Paco is. He really is someone who shares empathy through learning and helping others learn, and I've been able to benefit from his guidance there. So I would speak on behalf of Paco and all candidates there tonight, and again, thanks for being here.
Question has been called for and seconded. Is there any objection? Do you withdraw your? Senator Claiborne?
Senator Rios, will you take it as a friendly?
Could you speak into a mic, Kit?
Senator Rios, will you take it as a friendly to change the O to a U in my last name?
Yes, sir. I apologize.
No, you're fine.
Question has been called for and seconded. Any objection to voting now? Closing comments with Senator Rios?
Yep, I just wanted to quickly say about how we selected them. So can you all hear me? So basically the application process, we did it, they all had the same questions. We didn't know who they were, their names or their genders. Only Director Flores had access to that information. So that way we revised their answers kind of unbiased. And then we had so many great applicants, more applicants than positions actually. But then, yeah, we decided on these candidates. They're great. I encourage you to vote yes. Thank you.
All right, we'll go ahead and go into a voting period. Unanimous consent has been called for. Is there any objection to confirming the nominees for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee unanimously? Seeing none, congratulations. Moving on to 2021-1-2-024 seeing a senator to Rules Committee with Senator Weathers, Speaker Weathers.
Okay, yeah, so there was an opening on Rules Committee recently, and I had to field applications from Senate in order to appoint a new person to this position, excuse me. And Senator Rizvik was, in my mind, the most qualified. So I guess I will ask Senator Rizvik to speak on her qualifications and why she wanted to be on Rules Committee, and all of you can make that judgment for yourselves.
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and introduce myself since we did seat new senators today. So my name's Emily Rizvik. I'm a senator for off-campus students. Just to give some background on why I'm interested in this position. So I've really been wanting to join Rules. At the beginning of the semester, when all the spots had filled up, I was like, oh, shoot. Wish I saw the original email faster before it closed up. But because a seat has opened up, I'm really excited to be up here for that. Some background on some qualifications. For the past year, I've interned at Story County and the city of Indianola, and I've worked on writing code and amendments, reviewing existing code as well to both like the Board of Supervisors and then for Indianola, their city council. And so I feel like I have some experience in that knowledge, some on federal laws and then state code as well. And then I've also been involved in student government for a few years as well. I guess this would be my third or fourth year. I don't know. I joined in like fall of 2017. So I'm a little bit familiar with the existing bylaws and how they've amended, how they have been amended throughout the years. I'd be happy to answer any questions, go into detail about any of my past experiences with writing code, reviewing code, etc. So, yeah.
Senator DeVore?
Yeah, do you have any particular initiatives or things in the bylaws that you would like to work on?
I really wish we could increase the readability of the bylaws. I think it's very, it's a difficult document to read, and I feel like that creates inaccessibility, not only to senators, but also people outside of Senate that are trying to understand and read what the bylaws are. So,
Thank you. I yield.
Senator Dvait?
I'm sure we all love Rules Committee very much, and with that, I have a question for you. What might be your favorite chapter of the bylaws? And if so, why?
Would it be biased if I said chapter 15 since I wrote it? I don't know. I thought that was very exciting too, because we had, of course, some cases that went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court went back to student government and said, hey, you guys should implement something within your governing documents. And it kind of just, that recommendation sat there for a year, maybe a year and a half. And so for me, it was kind of exciting to actually implement a recommendation that the Supreme Court had that it kind of got overlooked. So.
Now that's perfectly fair. I completely agree. On a more serious note, considering rules is one of the primary, well, it is the committee charged with our bylaws and our rules and all that stuff, I'd like to ask you what your opinion on the role and the structure of Rules Committee is, and where you'd like to see the committee head, and if in the past you've seen us sort of not doing things the right way, and what you'd like to see changed, I suppose.
Yeah, I kind of see Rules Committee as kind of like almost like a screening committee where like when we have these proposed bylaws, we can see it and make amendments. Like if there's numbering issues, we can address that rather than having to do that here on the floor. And then also if there is language that is kind of vague, or if it just is very confusing, maybe proposing language so that way it creates like a clear idea of like what the intent is. So I would say like that's my view of what Rules Committee is and what it should be. So.
Thank you. I think those are great answers, and I'm personally really excited to work with you on rules, on all the things you just spoke about. I yield and call the question.
Question has been called for and seconded. Any objection to voting now? Right, we'll go ahead and go into a voting period. Unanimous consent has been called for. Is there any objection to confirming the nominee to Rules Committee unanimously? Right. Congratulations. Moving on to General Orders 2021-2-033Y, adding the Director of Student Services to the bylaws with Senator Advait.
Hello again. This is a pretty simple bill. I will go over the singular whereas clause, which explains the rationale for this bill's existence. Recently, we discovered that the position of the Director of Student Services currently exists on somewhat rather shaky legal grounds, if I will. To elaborate on that, we all collectively seem to be of the impression that this position existed in the bylaws. About 2 weeks ago, Aditi, who holds the position, asked me to point her to a section in the bylaws where her position's responsibilities might be codified. And on leafing through the executives chapter over and over again, I was flabbergasted to find that this position was not in there whatsoever. The last executive order we could find establishing this position was from 3 years ago, and there seems to be some debate on whether or not executive orders are effective past the term of the president who's promulgated those. With that in mind, this bill adds said position to the bylaws. This is a very productive position. It's existed for a while. I don't imagine there would be a lot of concerns about this, but if you have questions, please do reach out to me. I move the Rules Committee amendments.
There's been a motion to approve the Rules Committee amendments and seconded. Any objection? Go into discussion on those amendments. Question has been called for and seconded. Any objection to voting now? All right, we'll go to a voting period on those amendments. Unanimous consent has been called for. Is there any objection to adding those amendments unanimously? All right, amendments been added. Speaker Weathers.
Move to remove Senator Rios Martinez from the roll.
Is there any objection to removing Senator Rios from the roll? Right, she's been removed from the roll. Back on the bill. Question has been called for and seconded. Any objection to voting now? All right, we'll go ahead and go to closing comments with Speaker Weathers. Senator Debate. Nope. Okay. Sorry, I had the wrong bill up there. We'll go into a voting period. Since this is a bylaw bill, we will be doing a roll call vote for this one. Please vote yes, no, or abstain. Edvate. Yes. Adagarla. Brecht. Blythe. Yes. Carter. Claiborne. Cooper.
Yes.
Crab. DeVore.
Yes.
Benaldi. Goff. Hayes. Larson. Lent. Mahoney. Rios. Patel. Paulson. Rizvik. Ruley. Seth. Simmons. Stout. Thornton. Wegmeister. Weathers. Zuber. Sayaway. Strickland. Of a vote of 25 to 0 to 2, the bill passes. All right, moving on to new business, 2021-2-034Y, allowing Finance Committee to approve line item transfers with Senator Ruley.
Yeah, so this bill essentially would allow a Finance Committee to approve all line item transfers. You can read through it yourselves, but essentially there's Finance Committee at this current moment, bills under $500 can be approved by, line item transfers under $500 can be approved by the Finance Director. Anywhere from $500 to $1,500 can be approved by just Finance Committee, and then anything above $1,500 must go to Senate. This bill would remove that requirement and allow Finance Committee to just approve line item transfers, and that goes with carryovers as well. I also wanted to request that this bill be sent to Finance Committee as well as rules.
Are there any questions of intent for Senator Ruley? All right, moving on to 2021-2-035, funding a new online finance program with Senator Ruley.
Yeah, and this bill is requesting funding for our new OFP. Currently, our OFP that we are using has had some security concerns, and then it is also fairly outdated. So this would move funding for a new OFP. I yield.
Any questions of intent? Seeing none, moving on to 2021-2-036F, funding AIM Student Association for Malaysians with Senator Wegmeister.
Yeah, the funding for advertising.
Any questions of intent for Senator Wegmeister? All right, seeing none, we'll go into announcements. Please raise your placard if you would like to give an announcement. Senator Advait.
All right, time for some lecture speed running. On the 20th of October 2021 at 5:30 p.m. in the sunroom of the Memorial Union, we have Runner, One Man's Journey from Sudan to Iowa State to the Olympics by Guor Mating Maker. On the 21st of October 2021 at 5:30 p.m., we have Emotional Intelligence Training by Allison D. Penning in the Iowa State University Student Innovation Center, and also over Zoom, it would seem. After that, also on the 21st at 6 p.m., we have Canoes, Romance, and Horses, the journey of 3 ISU students to best-selling authors Carrie Seam, Trent Pessler, and Denise Williams. On the 21st at 7:30 p.m., Lead Feet and Worn Brakes have Motivation and Self-Control Influence Decision-Making by Dr. Leonard Epstein. And then on the 22nd of October 2021 at 12 p.m. in the Student Innovation Center, we have Moving the Masses and Changing Beliefs by Narayan Devanathan. Also, a correction to my comments from a couple of minutes ago. Executive orders do, in fact, expire at the end of the president's term that promulgated those. And then lastly, I guess, just a little closing announcement from me. I understand I said something about arbitrarily waiving rules on the PNC bill, and I had that was generally coming from a belief that when the uniform application of rules is disrupted, marginalized communities are generally the first to have their rights affected. That being said, I also believe that rules and laws sort of exist as a means to an end, not an end in and of themselves, and that they primarily serve to better the communities that adopt them. I also genuinely believe in a greater good, and I'd like to thank everyone for the very productive debate we had. And I look forward to working on PNC with members of finance to make sure it also is consistent with how we're operating. Thank you, and I yield.
Senator Hayes.
Hey, just real quick. I know that I've been enjoying a lot of the artwork that's been out on campus for Homecoming Week. You guys should all do a little civic engagement and go to the Iowa State Homecoming Facebook page and vote for your favorite campus artwork put on by the Greek life community. So go and vote for them, whichever one's your favorite. That's all.
Senator Cooper.
All right, since this seems to be the time for shameless plugs, if any of you for some reason have noticed that I'm absent a lot these days and will probably end up being absent for the next 2 weeks, that is because I am participating in Iowa State's production of Street Scene, and I am going to put that out there that any of you who want to go see a little, early 20th century musical / opera, it is November 11th through the 14th, and I highly recommend you guys come. It should be a good time. It's at Fisher Theater, free to ISU students. Fair warning, without spoiling too much, the subject matter is heavily based around domestic violence. And so if that's something that you may be concerned about, how it might make you feel, I would encourage you to just go online and read a synopsis or something if you still want to go see it. But yeah, it should be a great time, and there are some very talented people in there. I don't know how I got fit into the same production as some of those people. It's ridiculous. But yeah, November 11th through the 14th at Fisher Theater. Yeah.
Senator Seth.
Shameless plug part 2. Or part whatever. I wanted to reiterate something that Senator Advait said earlier. Would just like to mention that the Woofs and Wellness event is next Tuesday. We'll be over by, East Marston, right? Yeah, East Marston Hall, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Come stop by. We will have wellness resources available to students as well as free donuts, and they're going to be Dunkin' Donuts, I think, right? So super excited about that. And doggos. Who doesn't like to pet dogs? I love to pet dogs. So yeah, just stop by, tell people you know about it. It'll be a good time. Yeah, shameless plug over. Yeah, what's up? What's up, Advait?
Just to clarify, when we say the East Marston lawn, we mean the very eastern edge of the lawn to the east of Marston. So it will be in line with the library, basically across from the hub. So you know where to find us. I yield.
Yeah, Tuesday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Dogs. Thank you.
Going over to the back table here with President Campbell, Finance Director Zaster, and Chief of Staff Ludwig. Pick the order.
I'm holding the mic. Yeah, thank you guys for a really good debate. When something is out of line with P&Z, that's always a really difficult conversation, especially when we all want to fund it. I think that what we voted tonight was the right choice. Really appreciate it. But I also really appreciate the debate, even though it was, I don't know. The conversation was really good. Appreciate it. And I saw Shop afterwards. I went down to scan something, and they were really happy. For the bills next week, I will get these specs of OFP to you. There was a proposal that was submitted to us. I will send that out to all of you so you're able to see it. Without doing a straw poll, which is something I would never do, would there be interest to having the programmer who worked on it come to Senate, or perhaps have an opportunity to answer questions if they were sent? I'm seeing some nods and some not nods. Great. Okay, I will see if he's available for that. He also is like an adult. And we do have a very busy meeting next week. Relating to the busy meeting, please read through the line item transfer bylaw bill and ask any questions. Next week is going to be a very long meeting. We have a couple of big bills. So if we want this meeting to be efficient, please start reading these bills tomorrow. And that way, if there are any questions, you can address them right now. If you need to draft language for amendments, we can get ahead of that, so we're not doing that on the Senate floor, taking up the 4 hours of time that we have for the City Council meeting and a few very large bills. Then I have office hours if you have any questions about OFP or the line item transfer bill. New senators, Senator Patel and the two who were seated tonight, I sent you an email. Please check that before 11 a.m. tomorrow if you could. Thursday night, plays the Broncos. He's the steward of the Browns, and I'm afraid. And finally, Trevor, if I get to you after the meeting, that'd be great.
Hello. Going off of what Mason was discussing with the Setwise proposal, I unfortunately will be unable to make it to next week's meeting, so I will be out of town. However, I can say with confidence that I have very good feelings about this. It's a team of 5 devs. The proposal was very competent, and they expressed a great desire to meet with us multiple times, pretty much every 2 weeks, in order to better iterate on the development process, which is excellent. And keep in mind that this still is in the early phase of the design of this piece of software. So for all of you coding-oriented folks, please keep the whiteboard questions to a minimum. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Howdy. Usually at this point I have something to say about Cyride, but this week I'm going to put on one of my other hats. I'm a member of the Parks and Rec Commission for the City of Ames, and tomorrow we are meeting to decide whether or not to recommend an agility course be installed in Carr Park, and I would feel bad if I didn't do what Keith Abraham asked me to do and tell students to come and talk at the meeting if you have an interest. If you're not familiar with what an agility course is, it's basically just think like parkour, essentially. I'll be honest, I've been in a lot of meetings about this, and it's still a little vague, but it's a fun place, and a lot of people like them in the places where they're installed. But it's been a hot button issue, and so the commission's been encouraging people to come out to the meetings. So tomorrow at 4 p.m. in City Hall in the City Council chambers, be there or be square. It's going to be the discussion of a lifetime. So that's all I've got.
A very quick but exciting announcement from the athletics department. One of our very own from the swimming and diving team was elected to serve as the chair of the Big 12 Student Athlete Advisory Council for the upcoming year. That's a huge deal. Her name's Lear Thorson, and she, again, is a member of the swimming and diving team. I'm going to try to make it to their meet. I talked to her over email. They're competing against Nebraska on the 30th here. I believe that's over at Beyer Hall. So just to put that out there, that's pretty cool for her to be in that role.
All right, we'll move over in announcements. Quick thing, I swam with Lear Thorson when I was in club swimming in middle school, so I think that's super cool. Remember her from that? Obviously, I didn't make a collegiate career out of it, but moving on.
Awesome. I know that Senator Rios isn't here. I want to say thank you, if she's listening, for the microaggressions working meeting that we had at 5 p.m. If you all weren't there to attend, I would email Natalia and have her send over the presentation. It was really, really good. So I also want to thank Trevor. Thank you so much for coming. I'm really excited for next week. It's going to be awesome. Don't forget to submit responses to Trevor's email. And also, in the next coming weeks, sit by someone new. You can get to know people that way. It's really fun. And yeah, so sit by someone you haven't really sat by before. Don't forget to do Omni. For all the new senators that may or may not have a mentee or a mentor, that will be by the end of the week. You will be receiving that and getting an email. Some things have changed around. We've added some, lost some. So, but please do Omni. No.
Okay, everyone. For those of you dying to know, Omni does stand for Opportunities for Mentoring New Inductees. It's a fantastic program that we offer. A low note, I unfortunately have to say, I have to remind all of you that our bylaws do dictate that you, if you are using technology during the Senate meeting, to make sure that you're using it for Senate purposes or student government purposes. You cannot be using social media or messing around, etc. If you don't like that rule, if you think it's unfair, you're welcome to write the bylaw bill to change it. On a high note, I think all of the questions that got asked tonight, the debate we had was extremely good. I think it was an exemplary night for Senate, so I want to applaud all of you. And I also want to welcome our new senators. A quick round of applause to them. All right, and with that, I move to adjourn. Go Cyclones.
Is there a second? Seeing no objections, this meeting is adjourned.